What began as a simple question led to the discovery of a simple object, and that object was a wavicle. The idea was everything in nature boils down to geometry, no matter how you slice it. If you go to the smallest perceivable scale and you look at through an X-ray diffraction microscope at an iron atom or any other kind of atom, you're going to see a colloidal field that's basically a geometry floating in liquid space, in dark space. As far as you can see, now we've been presented with a picture of an atom. Well, that atom itself is going to be in a geometric field and it's going to be part of a lattice because there's no such thing as an individual atom. Because if you try to look at an individual atom, you're not going to see anything that even remotely resembles reality. I can make the case by stating simply that that would happen if you tried to study bubbles. Let's think about that. If I study individual bubbles, what am I going to find out about bubbles? They're all going to be round. They're all going to be spherical. They're going to be independent and floating in the breeze, or they're going to be under the wind of a wand. I'm going to find out that there's inside and outside have to be about the same pressure because that's where they've reached equilibrium. That's what we'd understand about bubbles. Problem with that theory is that once you start putting bubbles together, something remarkable happens. Two spheres put together as a single bubble don't make one bubble. They're still two separate bubbles, but now there's a flat plane between them. And that happens no matter how many bubbles touch each other. Wherever two bubbles come in contact, a flat plane will result, guaranteed. That is a premise of fractal field mechanics. It says that when you enter a fractal field environment, any kind of a boundary environment, which is any two things coming together, you will invariably invoke a Casimir effect. There are no two ways around it. The Casimir effect between my two hands is minimal and negligible because I have fingerprints that keep my surfaces from actually getting that close. And the ones that actually do get close enough don't represent enough surface area to keep my hand stuck together. That's different if I had two pieces of glass and I put the two pieces of glass together and just kind of rubbed them, they would be separate. If I put water between those two pieces of glass, it would be really hard to pry them apart. The same thing happens with bubbles in a bubble field. So what I'm going to explain about fractal field mechanics is simple. What happens below the surface of a water line is chaos velocity rising. What happens at the water line is bubbles that rise up through this chaos with no apparent shape. All they have is a vector. They're blobs. They're not even translucent. They're opaque. When these bubbles hit the surface at full speed, guess what happens? They stop. They don't turn into space. My thought was they're going to turn right into space. No, 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 no. Put soap in the water and the bubbles stop because now they've run into what's called atmospheric pressure. Every square inch of planet Earth is being smashed by 14.8 pounds of pressure at sea level. Think about that. A 10 by 10 surface is now 140 pounds of pressure against a 10 by 10 surface. A lot of pressure per square area. This is why things collapse. This is why we can't go horizontal too far without a post. Now we get to the synthesis of moving from post and beam construction, which is internally based construction, to externally based construction, which is the basis of all human perception. We go back to the 5 basic principles, the 5 governing shapes that determine how human beings pull information from the huge EM field that we have no access to. The little piece that we do pull from, that part of the EM field that we can actually perceive, has to be structured in such a way that it can correlate to the perceiver. And this is where science drops the ball. They said that there is no correlation between the perceiver and what you're perceiving, and that perception is just like some sort of, I don't know, disconnected observation of a picture. Do I look disconnected from this picture? No. I'm absolutely part of this picture, just as much a part of this picture as that thing and that thing. All of that is part of this picture. The sky is part of this picture. How could I not be part of this picture? Who would be talking to you if I wasn't part of the picture? Mnemogenesis says that perception is participatory, and that the only reason we can only pull certain limited amounts of information from the metafield is because our bodies are geometric, our brains are geometric, our eyes are spheres, our ears are speakers. Everything about our geometry is geometric, and that geometry is governed by ratios, non-changing ratios, and it's also governed by geometric, sequential geometric patterning that is based on quantized geometry. This is when the blobs of bubble hit the surface, and we'll show you pictures of that. The giant blobs of bubbles that hit the surface of the water from the bottom of an aquarium begin to form instant crystals. There are no round bubbles in a bubble field. Curvature disappears because velocity dissipates from linear vectors that only move magnitudes in a direction to a static field that mitigates gas and water, vapor and water, which cannot mix. That's why the surface of the sky, that's why the surface of the air is here, and the surface of the water is here. They never will the two ever mix. We forget two things cannot touch. What is the layer between the sky and the water? There has to be a layer. I don't care what you say, because the sky is a field and the water is a field. And mnemogenics would say there has to be a fractal boundary between those two phase states. Mnemogenics states that at every phase change, there is not only a boundary condition called a fractal field, but there's also a change in polarity. Every note in every octave denotes a small increase in charge that amounts to a shift in polarity at every octave. That's why everything that we hear and feel in nature resonates at frequencies, at musical frequencies, because we ourselves are walking frequencies. We don't know that because what we see as a frequency, we sense as a color. We sense temperature as colors. We sense vibrations as noises. We sense high frequencies as solidity, and we sense low frequencies as disturbances. It's the strangest thing. When you think about the universe, we never see the whole universe. We just see that tiny sliver. And here's the weird part. While all the other scientists are looking at the picture, I study the camera. I'm saying, how is perception perceiving this universe? Because however that is, that's what we're looking at. The universe might not be fractal at all, but our perception is, because we are bound to the patterns of geometry that allow for growth and contraction without destroying the pattern. The only way you can do that is through fractal compression. We just found this out recently from people like Benoit Mandelbrot. We found this out every time we use facial recognition. We are now finding algorithms that are determining what you watch on your phone. And so it's turning out that algorithms, which is nothing more than geometric math, and don't forget this, geometry came way before math. And if you don't believe that, all numbers are made of geometric symbols and glyphs, just like the alphabet. 26 glyphs that are all slants, horizontals, or verticals. Same with the numerical system. The number 5 is nothing more than a box on top of a circle. Number 5 is halfway between 1 and 9. It's the center number that says this is where the bubble hits the surface and turns from a circle into a linear structure. That's what 5 means. That is the Nemo plane. It is the mu gate where velocity turns into linear spin structure we call geometry. And it's so obvious in a bubble field that nobody's been paying any attention. So that will be one of our next lessons is we will find the cube in the bubble field, and that will be the end of it. No, the beginning of it. That will be the beginning of it. This is Rez signing off.